Shalom, giving all praises to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Harakhakwadash, saying double honors to our apostles and elders here at Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the Lord's hopefully elect. So what Esau Edom is doing, his wicked elite, is that he's trying to bring forth this enterprise, this idea of what they would call a futuristic new world order. And what they're finding out is that their ideal plan isn't actually going to work according to how they think it's going to work. And that's simply because the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, by Shem Yahweh Shai, is disappointing their hands to where they can't achieve that which is what they seek to achieve. So, like if you look up movies like I, Robot, right? I, Robot was made in 2004, but it was dated. The whole idea, the futuristic idea, was in 2035. So that's 10 years, right? The idea behind that is these devils, they really do want to achieve such a dream, and to achieve that dream, this is what they're pushing for. But it's all a guise and a disguise to achieve complete control over the population of the people. So they're doing things and pushing things, and they're boasting in things that they're going to try to achieve, but they actually is failing before them. So like if we start with electric vehicles for one, the true reason they're trying to push electric vehicles is for control. It's even in the terms of agreement that if you buy an electric vehicle and that you give the manufacturer or the dealer the right to shut down your car, or even have the car to drive back to whatever, if you like get behind on your payments or whatever it is. But the fact is, it's being brought out that those electrical vehicles are actually worse than just a regular gas fuel car. And I like this guy here. He goes by M Guy Australia. His whole channel is dedicated to exposing the ineffectiveness, as you can say, of electric vehicles. And in this video, he's going to briefly explain that the ultimate end goal behind all this has nothing to do with net zero, has nothing to do with them trying to help the people, but it's more so control.
I recently posted a video entitled 10 Reasons Why You Should Never Buy an EV, linked in the description. Go and watch that when you finish watching this one, of course, which summarises the reasons on the demand side of the equation as to why the average person should not even consider an EV. Cost, convenience, practicality and depreciation are just some of them. If you really want to do your bit for the planet, rather than just signal your virtue to the neighbours, buy a recent used combustion car, maintain it well and keep it as long as possible. But on the other side of the equation, there are almost as many reasons why the great EV transition that the evangelists are always crowing on about will never happen. We're going to look at a great video with Mark P. Mills, which again you should watch in full after this, and extract 11 key reasons why battery EVs won't replace combustion cars anytime soon. And there's nothing in here about politics or opinion. It simply exposes how the fantasy policies of governments will collide with reality, engineering and physics. And it doesn't take a genius to work out which of those will win out in the end. Welcome back to...
Now, I'm going to read, this is book of Job 5 and 8. He says, I would seek unto Yahweh, and unto Yahweh will I commit my cause, which doeth great things, and unsearchable, marvelous things without number, who giveth rain upon the earth, and sendeth waters upon the field, to set up on high those that be low, that those which mourn may be exalted to safety. He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the forward is carried headlong. So this enterprise of theirs, this futuristic control of everybody's driving an electric vehicle to push for net zero, this is the future. And they're trying to make people bank on the electric vehicles. They're trying to take this huge step forward, but they're actually taking 2 steps back, because it's being found out that those electric vehicles are actually worse than a regular gas vehicle car, and that the practicality of actually enforcing that on the world and making that replace actual cars, which really they're just trying to take away your freedom in the first place, is just practically impossible. And that's why the whole point is, though they're boasting. Let me read that really quick. As Psalms 10 verse 3 says, "For the wicked boasteth of his heart's desire." Right, and blesses the covetous, whom the Lord Yahweh abhorreth. So they're boasting in their heart's desire, and their heart's desire is that they want to reach this futuristic, like this video here was put up by Elon Musk, talking about some welcome to Mars. This futuristic ideal, like boasting of going to Mars. They're gonna have everything electrified. It's time to move forward with the future, which is ultimately their goal of complete control and to be as gods on the planet Earth. These are the things they're pushing for, but the Lord is disappointing them because their so-called step towards the future net zero is actually proven to be much worse. And this is why in the end they're going to just resort to the sword, the force of the sword, to get people to do what it is that they want.
He explains why EV mandates are all about removing personal freedoms rather than reducing emissions. But we don't need to worry because they'll never work anyway. Let's get into it. Number 1, EVs don't reduce oil use. Ignoring the fact that the fantasy policy of net zero fails to appreciate that oil is used for thousands of other products that we rely on in our daily lives, banning combustion cars will make virtually zero difference to global energy consumption.
If it were the case that half of all the world's vehicles were electrically propelled, burn no oil, which is a goal that's functionally impossible to achieve in the remotely foreseeable future. But even if that were to happen, and by the way, half of all the world's vehicles becoming EVs is 100-fold growth of where we are today. It's a lot of growth. But even were that to happen, it would reduce the world's need for oil by about 10%. This is not an existential threat to big oil. Meanwhile, what's actually happening, consider these facts, that even as the number of EVs has risen, and it has, from nearly zero about a decade ago, to more than 40 million EVs in the world now, that is, all electric vehicles. And that's a big number. 40 million is a significant number of all electric vehicles. But that didn't stop the growth in the consumption of gasoline. This year, gasoline consumption globally is reaching record peaks, blowing past the peak gasoline consumption that took place just prior to the great and feckless lockdowns from COVID.
Number 2, EVs don't reduce CO2 emissions. This is why we're being forced into driving EVs according to our governments, but it's all a lie.
The International Energy Agency's accounting bragged in their most recent report that globally EVs are already avoiding 150 megatons of CO2 emissions. Sounds like a big number. Well, you could do the math on this. That's about 0.4% of global CO2 emissions. Not such a big number, or maybe for context, in a more sort of, in a way, grotesque way, the oil-burning war machines that are rampaging across Ukraine right now, those machines are emitting more new CO2 every 6 months than all the world's EVs combined have eliminated.
Number 3, the mining for EVs emits more CO2 than they save. It's easy to tell how much CO2 emissions are generated by combustion cars because you can simply look at the amount of diesel or petrol they burn, and that is directly related to the amount of CO2. But with EVs, nobody really knows, because the production and manufacture of these vehicles creates an enormous carbon footprint that is almost impossible to quantify.
It arises from a really simple fact. A typical EV battery, Dominic's parents, Tesla, has a 1,000 pound battery. The fuel tank weighs 1,000 pounds. The gasoline fuel tank in your car, if you drive a gasoline car, is about 80 pounds. The 1,000 pound fuel tank is made from a complex set of chemicals and minerals that require mining somewhere. In fact, for that 1,000 pound battery, you have to mine somewhere in the world 500,000 pounds of rock. Those 500,000 pounds of rock per car are mined with oil-burning machines, really big machines burning diesel fuel. They're carried by really big diesel fuel burning machines, shipped on ships burning diesel fuel all over the world, crushed by large coal-fired electric producing power plants and big grinders to crush the rock, to dissolve it, to get the minerals up. The list goes on. You get the point. Each car emits carbon dioxide emissions just to make it. Those emissions, what they are specifically, is highly difficult and complex to figure out because of the labyrinthian supply chains. There are global supply chains. Much of the supply chain is in China. So we actually don't know precisely what a particular EV's emissions are, but we do know the range, and it can vary by a factor of 300%. And at the higher end of the range, the emissions associated with this, building the EV are greater than the emissions that you will save by never driving the gasoline car you turned in for the EV.
Now, again, the whole idea behind this push for net zero, no matter what it is they're saying, is simply for control. And the net zero, the climate control, that's just the front. You got to know how the devil operates. The push for net zero climate control, this is their justification for 15-minute cities, for taking away your transportation, for getting you microchipped, for you getting jabs, for you eating lab-grown meat, 3D printed meat, not eating real thing. This quest to quote unquote save the planet, that's just the lie. That's the front to get people to comply with this new with this idea. And you know, the Lord is bringing it to naught, because when you bring this actual factual info to the leaders of the people, they're going to ignore it. But Donald Trump, they gave, I forgot what it's called, but they're basically forcing car manufacturers to stop making regular cars, gas powered cars. So many every year they have to make electric vehicles now, but nobody's buying them. There's videos of these dealers. They're basically trying to give those electric vehicles away for free because nobody wants them. You know, all it takes is a little research to see everything that's what do you take, you know, the risk involved with an electric vehicle. I personally would never get one of those things, but this is the whole point. You know, it's failing on them. So their whole idea to push a futuristic world where they're the guides and all that, it's not going to work. The Lord is disappointing. So if you bank everything on electric vehicles, but even that's failing you, so then it's like, what do you have next? You see, this is the Lord disappointing him, but this is why he's going to resort to force. The book of Jeremiah 49 verse 7 says, concerning Edom, thus said the Lord Yahweh of hosts, is wisdom no more in Teman? Is counsel perished from the prudent? Is their wisdom vanished? And Teman represents the Germans, the Edomites, which is supposed to be their wise. So the Lord said that wisdom is no more in Teman, and their counsel is prudent. And their counsel is perished from the prudent.
Time. That's why there's lots of cars.
Number 9, it's not about reducing emissions. There are many ways of reducing emissions that don't require a blanket EV mandate. More efficient petrol engines would have a far greater effect than forcing people to buy EVs.
Who would you subsidize? Well, rather than subsidize the wealthy who drive EVs, taxi have to drive home.
Number 10, the goal is to take away your car. The real reason for all this isn't about saving the planet, however. It's all about taking away your car and your freedom.
The IEA's net zero plan, this is the plan to, get carbon dioxide down, explicitly calls for increasing, I like the use of the reversal of this language, increasing the share of people who don't have a car. Notice how they want to increase the share of the homeowners in the world who don't have a car from today's 45%. So 45% of people in the world don't have a car. They want to increase that share to 70% of people not having a car by 2040 in order to meet their emissions goals. California, which is always, really eager to be on the leading edge of these kinds of dystopian trends, they've also explicitly stated that, and in their enshrined goals passed into law, they are going to require citizens in the near future to drive 25% fewer miles a year, 25% fewer miles a year than they did 30 years ago. That's going to be the benchmark for reducing driving.
Number 11.
So there you have it. That's the real goal, but it's failing right before them. So they're just going to resort to force. Okay, and this is all the power of the Lord disappointing the devices of the crafty. With that, shalom.